So recently I've been thinking a lot about national identity and how it differs from other identity politics. And I don't really classify it as identity politics at all, because I think of national identity as more apolitical. And I've been thinking of ways to describe what I mean, but The Simpsons actually does a really good job of actually explaining, I'd say local identity in their case, but I think it's a good analogy because they use city identity of Springfield, and they have an antagonist city, which is Shelbyville, which has been an ongoing joke in it. But this episode specifically goes into the rivalry between them, and I think it's really good. Now, the episode I'm talking about is the 24th episode of the 6th season of The Simpsons, and it is called Lemon of Troy. And I'm not going to give a blurb of the episode, because I'm going to go through the whole episode, so I'm going to let the episode start now.
Wet cement! Is there any sweeter sign? Well, maybe high voltage.
So Bart spotted something that's so important that he's going to jump over a safe full of jewels and skip out on a chance to ride a flying motorcycle.
Okay. This is for the ages.
And it's all for an egotistical and very self-centered reason, and that's to make it seem like he's some type of magic man who can write his name in solid cement, which to a 10-year-old may seem like an amazing thing and quite a cool thing to do. But ultimately, we'll find out that his mother is not going to be very happy with it.
Oh, good, somebody's shadow. I'll just turn and brag about my work. Nice!
Bart, you've graffito tagged public property.
It was an accident.
So as in every Simpsons episode, Marge is quite mad at Bart because Bart has done something wrong. But it's more than just because he did something wrong, as she is going to make a very good speech about.
I can't believe you vandalized your own hometown, Bart. What would Jebediah Springfield say?
I think he'd be cool with it.
Oh, Homer, will you please help me make a big deal of this?
What for? Nobody cared when Bogart defaced that sidewalk in Hollywood.
Well, I'm just shocked by this whole family. Whatever happened to good old-fashioned town pride?
It's been going downhill ever since the lake caught fire.
Now, just a darn minute. This town is a part of who you are. This is a Springfield Isotopes cap. When you wear it, you're wearing Springfield. When you eat a fish from our river, you're eating Springfield. When you make lemonade from our trees, you're drinking Springfield.
Mom, when you give that lecture, you're boring Springfield.
Bart, you have roots in this town and you ought to show respect for it.
And Marge is absolutely on the money here. From where you are, I know it's town pride in this case, but again, it could be extrapolated nationally in this case. So you have roots in your hometown and your home country, and you ought to show respect for it. And that includes respecting the flag, respecting the other people in the country because they are your fellow citizens. And also you should show respect for the countryside as well. Hence a lot of people are very conservative about their environment, and that's why we have national parks. And that's why you shouldn't litter. You show basic respect for the place you live, and it will be better for everyone in the place. And I think it's a really good basic lesson in nationalism and town pride, as she said. And I don't mean nationalism in a chest-beaty, fascist, I guess, sort of way. I can't think of a better word for it right now. But still, I think the message stands. From where you are should be where you keep most of your respect and a certain amount of your pride. Because if you're proud of your place that you live, whether it be your country, your town, your city, whatever, if you treat it with respect and you treat the people there with respect as you should, then ultimately everyone's life will be better. And I think, as a lot of the left do, constantly decry how awful our history and culture is in the UK and the rest of the West. They just don't have any respect for it, and I think it's ridiculous. And I think there needs to be a better message out there that really our places of birth are really worth respecting and loving in a way. But the episode goes on, and Bart learns this lesson very quickly, as the next few scenes will demonstrate.
Hey, gonna win some this season?
Gonna try.
When it comes to catching trout, nothing beats the German light infantry.
Beautiful, aren't they?
Yep, I'm gonna hook them at cars. Hook!
Millhouse has a lemonade business.
It's clearly booming, Bart.
I don't even want any. I just bought a pity glass.
We squozing our whole supply to the lemon tree.
So Bart started to take pride in his own hometown, as we can see, even though his hometown team of baseball, the Springfield Isotopes, are clearly terrible. And he says, are you actually going to win something? And they're going to try. But it's a friendly interaction, and that's generally what should happen in a cohesive national society. Of a nation, I mean. But then he goes on to enjoy the wildlife in his area, such as the trout that Nelson is catching. Alright, he's hooking them at cars, but obviously that's just a joke. I mean, The Simpsons is a comedy after all. And finally we come on to the lemon tree, which is the main part of the episode, for good reason. And the next scene really puts through the message of town pride becoming tribal, which can be a problem, I guess, but Shelbyville are the awful people in this case, as you will see.
There she grows.
You know, Millhouse, I've been thinking. This town ain't so bad. Good friends, lots of lemons, numerous angel sightings. When you get right down to it, Springfield's a pretty cool place to live.
Springfield sucks!
And now Bart has good pride in his town. Finally we have the antagonist city coming in, which is Shelbyville, and this is where the tribalism starts, which again I'm not necessarily saying is a bad thing, but it is very entertaining.
Hey, stop talking bad about my town, man.
Why don't you make me?
I don't make trash, I burn it.
Then I guess you're a garbage man.
Well, I know you are, but what am I?
A garbage man?
Oh, I know you are, but what am I?
A garbage man?
I know you are, but what am I?
A garbage man?
Takes one to know one.
Checkmate! Hey, kid, stop wearing your backpack over one shoulder. We invented that. Copycat.
You copied us.
Step over this line and say that. I'll kick your butt. At Nintendo. Ugh, I just put a rock in your crummy town.
That's a crud rock. It belongs in Crud Town.
And this is where the tribalism is in an okay area, I'd say, because it's just trash talking each other, it's just kids being kids. But it gets a bit worse in the next scene, where something I'd call, well, is actually illegal, actually happens.
Come on, let's get out of here.
Hey, they're taking our lemons.
We can't spare a single one. Ow, ow, ow. You just got citric acid in my eye. You'll pay for that, Springfield.
Ah! Some things never change.
Now, Shelbyville tried to take the lemons which belong to Springfield, and it's kind of a massive disrespect to the town of Springfield by doing that, as the kids worked out and started throwing lemons at them anyway, which again is a joke. But the point still stands that if you're in a tribalistic nation against another town or nation that's tribalistic, you're going to have social friction. And when one town takes it too far, you start to get in really tribalistic wars, which is basically what this episode's about. But as Grandpa Simpson has just mentioned, some things never changed. So it's as if this war has been going on for a while. But again, it's all based on pride for the town, which I think is a good thing, as the start of this episode explained. But we'll go into the history of Springfield now, and it's, again, entertaining as The Simpsons usually is.
Did you know this tree dates back to frontier times? Shut up! It all began when Jebediah Springfield first came to these lands with his partner, Shelbyville Manhattan.
People, our search is over. On this site we shall build a new town, where we can worship freely, govern justly, and grow vast fields of hemp for making rope and blankets.
Yes, and marry our cousins.
What are you talking about, Shelbyville? Why would we want to marry our cousins?
Because they're so attractive. I thought that was the whole point of this journey.
Absolutely not.
I tell you, I won't live in a town that robs men of the right to marry their cousins.
Well, then we'll form our own town. Who will come and live a life devoted to chastity, abstinence, and a flavorless mush I call root marm.
of Springfield was born on that day. And to mark that sweet moment, our people planted this lemon tree. Lemons being the sweetest fruit available at the time.
So that whole backstory essentially gives credence to the fact that this lemon tree is more than just a lemon tree to Springfield. It's a representation of its culture. It's a symbol of its history that go all the way back to the town's founding. And that is a hell of a thing to have in a town. I know it's just a cartoon, but again, it's an analogy. Now imagine your country, with all its history, with all its statues that it has, I know there are a lot in England, and with all its nature, it's a representation of your past. And I know some people will hate me here, but I think grey squirrels are a good part of that, because it shows that we took in a lot of animals from different countries, and it kind of ruined our own. Yeah, that's why we need conservation in some place, and that's why I'd keep Scotland a red squirrel zone at all costs. But the point gets across. You need your culture and your history and the symbology of it, really, and that's why we have statues and everything in Britain. And I think they are very much worth defending, because it's a representation of your country or town's history, as this episode of The Simpsons really demonstrates, and it's why I think it's a really good episode. But now the real meat and bones of this episode comes into play.
The lemon tree's gone! And the tracks appear to lead into Shelbyville!
Oh, look, a clue. A candy bar wrapper. Oh, they're always eating candy in Shelbyville. They love the sweet taste.
We gotta get that tree back.
Ah, you mean going to Shelbyville? We'll never make it out alive.
That lemon tree is a part of our town, and as kids, the backbone of our economy. We'll get it back or choke their rivers with our dead.
So naturally the kids are not very happy after they've got a sense of town pride that the enemy town has taken their lemon tree, which, as I've just explained, is symbology of the entire town's history and culture. And of course he makes the point that they need the lemons to make lemonade, but that's not the point. That's again just a joke. And this episode really does a good job of explaining what good town pride really is, because if someone came into your country and started disrespecting symbology of your culture, and that can include your own laws for God's sake, and they just started treating it with absolutely no care in the world, you should say, be really annoyed at that. But our modern day politicians don't seem to care. They seem to just don't mind them getting away with it. A big party that lets people get away with murder, basically, is the SNP. They just don't care what they do. They're saying that liberal values that this country is built on should be gone away with, because it lacks the cohesion with other people's values who come into this country. And I think that's appalling. And I think they really need to watch this episode about town pride. But again, it's a good analogy for country pride. But I think we can continue.
And now, the time has come to cross this line into mystery and danger, to step out of childhood and become men.
I wanted to leave that bit in because it really shows that the boys are essentially stepping into enemy territory, and it must be generally a terrifying thing to walk into enemy territory like that. I know they're just kids and I know it's a cartoon, but I really think it shows that if there is a nation, let's say, who really goes against your own principles and values and culture, and you walk into it, it should really be terrifying. But we're being spoon-fed this whole thing that every culture is equal by the left, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm not saying you should be terrified when you go to another country or something like that, but I do just think it shows that if you are up against an enemy and it's based on tribalism of a nation, you should be scared about it because you really feel for your nation. I'm just saying this is I don't want to bring the World War II comparison in, but it is similar to how people were storming the beach of Normandy in World War II, but obviously that's a lot more terrifying because they can actually die. But these kids are 10 and it's a cartoon. What do you want?
Oh my gosh! Look! The fire hydrants here are yellow!
This place is starting to freak me out! Danger coming! Behind us!
What is it, boy? Is there something behind that wall we should beat up?
No time to check it out now. We've got lemonade to sell.
Radical.
They're getting rich off us.
And that kid with a backpack said radical. I say radical. That's my thing that I say! I feel like I'm gonna explode here! Ugh.
Now the kids are finding out that the other town, the slight differences in the other town, make them feel off-put. And I mean, to be honest, they're similar stuff, like the fire hydrant being yellow. It's not that much different, but they're really off-put by it. And I think that's because they have so much pride in their town that you end up being really uncomfortable in another place when something is even slightly different. And I think that's true of real life too. But that's a learning experience. I think that's a good experience to have. But the left seem to just want there to be absolutely no surprise when you go to another culture, because it's seen as a microaggression. And then when things are seen as similar, like when the blue-haired kid from Shelbyville says radical, Milhouse gets really annoyed because he feels like his culture has been appropriated, we'll say. Or his own individuality has been appropriated anyway. So he gets annoyed at it. And these are bad aspects of tribalism based from your hometown or your nation, which I think it's fine to point out. But this episode is mainly about town pride in general, which I'm extrapolating to national identity.
Okay, folks, look, I called the police captain in Shelbyville. He says he hasn't seen our kids, but if they show up in the morgue, he's gonna fax us.
Oh, man, I hate those Shelbyville jerks.
Honey, I was born in Shelbyville.
And it tears me up inside.
This is my fault. I tried to teach Bart about town pride, but the power of my words filled him with a sort of madness.
Now, Marge, you can't blame all of Bart's problems on your one little speech. If anything turned him bad, it's that time you let him wear a bathing suit instead of underwear. And let's not forget your little speech.
Isn't there anything we can do?
Yes, there is. Come on, everybody. Let's go into Shelbyville and get those kids back ourselves. I got an RV we can use. Flanders's!
Yeah, let's do it, yeah.
Well, okay, but, just go a little bit easy on
Pilot, everybody! No time to wipe your feet!
Now, the parents are obviously worried because they themselves don't like Shelbyville, as shown by Milhouse's dad having a problem with Milhouse's mother being born in Shelbyville. But also, Marge is worried because she's worried that her speech about town pride got to Bart in the wrong way, i.e. became a bit of a jingoist about his town. Which actually doesn't turn out to be the case, but again, that's a bit of a worry, and I think a legitimate worry about promoting nationalism. But I think if you do it in the right way, which I think Marge did, then good could come out of it, as is shown later in the episode.
Okay, Piglet, start squealing! Where'd you get the lemons for this lemonade?
This is country time lemonade mix. There's never been anything close to a lemon in it. I swear.
Hey, nobody hassles my little brother.
Hey, and no one manhandles the bosom chum of Nelson Muntz. Spring forth, burly protector, and save me!
Ah, jeez. I never hang out with him, normally.
Now, this is an example of where town pride or nationalism can play a good role, and that's Martin and Nelson in the show. Nelson's the bully to Martin, and always has been, but when they have a common goal to do with their town pride, then all of a sudden they're friends and they'll protect each other in whatever ways they can. Alright, it's mainly Nelson protecting Martin, but you get the point. Usually he'd beat the crap out of Martin, but he doesn't in this case, and it's because they've got a common goal with the town, and that is a good aspect of nationalism or town pride, which I think this episode again does a really good job on explaining the good and the bad via symbology of the characters. But we'll carry on because there's more examples of this later on.
Hello there, fellow Shelbyvillians.
Wait a minute. If you're from Shelbyville, how come we've never seen you at school?
I don't go to school.
Okay. What's 2 plus 2?
5.
Star checks out.
We just got word there's Springfield kids in town!
Curse those handsome devils.
We're going up to the bluffs to paint Springfield sucks in huge letters. That way, whenever they look into Shelbyville, they will realize that they suck.
Radical.
Quit copying me!
So Bart's gone undercover with his enemies, and he has to do something, or he's going to get in a situation where he may have to do something that's going to hurt his own town pride. And also, Milhouse is getting annoyed that the guy is appropriating his individuality. But this leads on to a really good point later on, and that's depending how proud you are of your own town or nation, depends on how much you are willing to actually win over an enemy in terms of strategies such as espionage.
Well, it's friendly Springfield hello there, neighbors. We think some kids of ours may be missing in your town.
Missing children.
Sounds like Springfield's got a discipline problem.
Maybe that's why we beat him at football nearly half the time, huh?
I just wanted to point out in this scene that it just shows that the people from Shelbyville are generally just pricks. But that might be because of the ancient friction between Shelbyvillians and Springfielders. But generally in this episode, they're just shown to be pricks like the French.
Quit stalling, kid! Write Springfield sucks in giant letters!
Oh.
His can control is excellent.
Yes, and that wig makes him look a lot like one of the Beatles.
But when they think they're with their fellow men, as Bart is pretending to be a Shelbyvillian, they tend to be quite complimentary and nice to him. So this is what I mean. Shelbyvillians are only pricks to Springfielders because of their ancient rivalry, which I think is fair enough. But that is something you should try and avoid when you're being tribalistic in a nation or a town, I think, personally.
That's right. The stranger who walks amongst you is me, Bart Simpson.
Huh?
You know Bart Simpson. From Springfield?
He's from Springfield! Get him!
And as soon as Bart mentions he's from Springfield, the tribalism sets in, which I think is a very good point of how tribalism in any form can be bad, but can apply to nations.
You're dead!
Hey look! Someone's attractive cousin!
And that scene was there just to point out that some stereotypes are true, such as the French being pricks.
Correction. The only thing that's over is that transmission.
Is this the untimely end of Millhouse?
But Millhouse is my name.
But I thought I was the only one.
A pain I know all too well.
So this is what it feels like when doves cry.
Now this is a scene where transcending tribalistic intentions between two towns or nations, we can use as an analogy, come into play, and that's finding common ground with someone else. So they both say radical, he wears his backpack over one shoulder, and they both have the same name, Millhouse, and then they realise they're both kind of social rejects and hug it out, which is, I think, a good thing, because sometimes the only thing you can do to relate to someone is leave your comfort zone, which may be your nation or your hometown, and find somewhere else to try and fit in, which is what the Millhouses do in this case.
There's a lemon behind that rock! The tree! Oh.
Oh, a car impound lot. The impenetrable fortress of suburbia. We'll never get the tree back now.
Keep your voices down, boys. We didn't come this far to get found out.
Found him! You kids are in big trouble, running away from home like this.
But they stole our lemon tree.
I don't care what excuse you've got. Nothing's gonna stop me in the middle of this speech. You're gonna lemon tree!
So they've encountered another difficulty in actually getting the tree back now that they have found it. But the main part here is the parents. So Homer goes off on one saying, you're in big trouble for running away from home. But as soon as the lemon tree, which again symbolises the history, culture, and pride of Springfield, all of a sudden he changes his tune and says, oh my god, we have to get that tree back for our town. Which I think is a good message to town pride and also to national pride, which I really should have called nationalism at the start, but I think nationalism does a good job of explaining what I mean anyway. But it's turned out that Bart and the other kids' reasons for going to Shelbyville have been justified, and that's because every good symbol of their town in that lemon tree has been defiled and stolen by Shelbyville. And honestly, I'm getting quite emotional about it, because if that was something from my own country, say if someone took a Union Jack and started burning it, I'd feel pretty bad about that. And I think you should, because that is a symbol of your own country. I can see why the Americans are really patriotic about Old Glory. But the episode continues.
That tree's been in Springfield since the time of our forefathers. Give it back, or we'll bust in there and take it.
Bust in here and take it? You must be stupider than you look.
Stupider like a fox! I'm okay. Oh.
Don't you get it, Springfield? It's over. You lose. Now, if you'll excuse me, all this talk has made me hungry.
Now, the cinematography of this scene is really important, I think, because through the gate is kind of a mirror image of each family, because you've got Homer and Bart on one side and then the Shelbyville family on the other. And it's a mid-30s guy with his 10-year-old son or whatever. And it's both sides of the same coin, and one of them wants what has been taken from them back, which I think is justified, and the other one is defending it because of the rivalry, which I think is a bad part of the tribalism. And again, I think the Springfield side of this story is mainly the justifiable one for tribalism and, in this case, town pride. And I think it's a good message to put across. I also wanted to leave that scene in for the lemon bit because it's one of my favourite Simpsons gags of all time, but that's going off topic.
This is the darkest day in the history of Springfield.
And all because a lemon tree was taken. What's a lemon tree to you? It's nothing, it's something that bears fruit. But to this town, it is, as I have said before, a symbol of its culture, its history, and a lot of other things to do with the town. So of course you want to keep it protected and cherish it. But someone's defiled it and taken it away from you. So of course this is a very dark day for your town, because your town has been completely insulted and there is nothing you can do about it, they feel anyway. But of course they get it back.
Oh! We made it!
Woohoo!
Eat my shorts, Shelbyville!
Eat my shorts!
Yes, eat all of our shirts.
Oh, you lousy Springfielder! You shake harder, boy!
And with that, a mighty cheer went up from the heroes of Springfield. They had brought the sacred tree back to its native soil, and though Flanders was stuck with the impound fee, he could easily afford it.
More lemonade, Bart? Absolutely. Say when.
So they've got their symbol of history and culture back, and they can start making lemonade again, and that's all fine and well and good. But it really does show, the whole episode in general really does show how national, or town pride in this case, really does show you that it is a good thing altogether, because you get defiled, something that is commonly owned is disrespected by anyone outside or inside, really, of the community, as the cement at the beginning showed with Bart and Marge told him off, then you need to rectify that. You need to really show force that if you are going to disrespect your own place that you live, whether it be a nation or a town, that you're not going to tolerate it. And I think that's exactly how we should treat the world. If someone wants to come over to your town or country and, you know, live in cohesion with your morals, your values, your culture, whatever, then fine, let them. No arbitrary factors really come into that. And that's the important thing with nationalism. It's not about anything other than how you act and behave. And that's shown by Milhouse's mother being from Shelbyville. Like, she's come to Springfield and she's basically been accepted. And that's why she went with them all to try and get the kids back. Which I think is a good thing to show. It was subtle, but it was a thing that they showed. But I do want to end with how, if you're on the losing side of a war like this, you will tell the stories to your kids.
Over 14 parts of the lemon that are...
And with that, a mighty cheer went up from the heroes of Shelbyville. They had banished the awful lemon tree forever because it was haunted. Now let's all celebrate with a cool glass of turnip juice.
So, of course, he's just twisted history and come up with whatever superstitious reason that they couldn't have actually kept the tree. And so they celebrate their own hometown. Is this a bad part of nationalism? Well, if you've got no good reason to have a good story about your nation, maybe you should make up one to really inspire people. But again, this is more of a joke at the end, I think, and you should really focus on the Springfield side because they're the justifiable side. And of course, you've got the turnips in Shelbyville, which are awful, and you don't have much to be proud of. But the old guy's still proud of it, and he'll probably end up making the kids proud of it. But that doesn't mean that you should keep the bad aspects of your nation or your town or whatever. But altogether, I think this was a really, really, really good analogy of national, or as I called it, local pride. And local can mean anything from where you live up until your country. And to be honest, it could be the Earth one day when we manage to get interstellar travel going. But that's a few centuries off now, I think. But in the meantime, thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.